What's up, everybody? Nick Wire here for the 10th inning, giving you another episode of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's episode, we saw the Los Angeles Lakers finish off a back-to-back championship run, winning the second of two straight, 2009 and 2010, as they defeated the Boston Celtics 4-3. We do have some more NBA Finals to get into today, but before we start that, if you're feeling down or depressed, just know you're not alone out there. There are many people feeling the exact same way as you, and there are many people out there who are willing to help. It could just be as simple as a phone call to make you feel better. Mental health is something that should never be taken as a joke. It is a very serious issue and something that should not be overlooked. Now, going into today's video, we do have some world records to get into, we do have some knockouts to talk about, and we have some NBA championships to talk about. If you're new to the channel, like what you see, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. This Day in Sports History. We start out today with two events from 1898. First, at the US Open, Fred Hurd easily wins his only US Open of his career and the only major of his career, 7 strokes ahead of runner-up Alex Smith. Also in 1898, at the US National Championship on the women's side, defending champion Juliet Atkinson defeated Marion Jones 6-3, 5-7, 6-4, 2-6, 7-5 in 5 sets. This would be Atkinson's third U.S. singles title. Now we move up to 1906 and we have the International Lawn Tennis Challenge, the 6th edition of this. Today, this is what is known as the Davis Cup. In the finals, the British Isles were going up against the United States, and the British Isles just completely dominated this matchup. They were able to sweep the United States, end up winning 5-0, won all of the single matchups and all of the doubles matchups. Now we move to 1915 at the US Open. 4-time amateur champion Jerome Travers, with a score of 1 over, captures his only US Open title, 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Tom McNamara. 12 years later, we have a world record that was set by runner Pavel Nurmi. This world record would be for the 2,000 meter, and Nurmi ran it in 5 minutes, 24.6 seconds to claim the world record. Now we move up to 1941 in boxing. We have a knockout. Joe Louis knocks out Billy Conn in the 13th round to retain the heavyweight boxing title. This would be Louis's 18th successful title defense. 6 years later in 1947, in Major League Baseball, Cincinnati Reds pitcher Ewell Blackwell no-hit the Boston Braves in a 6-0 victory. Blackwell on the day, 9 innings pitched, 4 walks allowed, 3 strikeouts en route to the victory and the no-hitter. Now we move up 13 years to the 1960 US Open, which saw Arnold Palmer with a score of 4 under stage one of the greatest comebacks in tournament history, erasing a 7-stroke final round deficit to win his only US Open title, 2 strokes ahead of runner-up Jack Nicklaus. This would be the third of 7 majors for Palmer in his career. Now we move up to the 1976 US Open, and it's kind of a flip-flop. We see Jack Nicklaus this time, who would not be denied the final victory, shooting a final round 65 for a new tournament record of 275, 5 under, 4 strokes ahead of runner-up Arnold Palmer. This would be Nicklaus's second US Open victory and the 7th of 18 overall major victories in his career. Also in 1967, we have a no-hitter alert. The Houston Astros pitcher Don Wilson no-hit the Atlanta Braves in a 2-0 victory. Wilson, with the no-hitter, became only the 10th rookie in MLB history to throw a no-hitter, with 9 innings pitched, 3 walks allowed, 15 strikeouts on the day. Now we go right back to the US Open in 1972. Jack Nicklaus, with a score of 2 over, captures his third US Open title of 4 overall and his 11th of 18 overall major victories, 3 strokes ahead of runner-up Bruce Crampton. Also in 1972, and I'm not going to get into the full detail of this because I could be talking about this for hours if I really wanted to. If you want to hear more about it, let me know down in the comment section. I can do a video on it. But the US Supreme Court, with a ruling of 5-3, confirmed the lower court rulings in the Curt Flood case. This ruling would uphold baseball's exemption from the antitrust laws, and Flood would never play another game in Major League Baseball. Finally, in 1972, at the UEFA European Championship final, West Germany was going up against the Soviet Union, and West Germany ended up defeating the Union 3-0. Gerd Mueller opened up the scoring for West Germany, scoring in the 27th minute. Then after halftime, Herbert Wimmer scored in the 52nd minute, and then Gerd Mueller scored once again in the 58th minute, giving him 2 goals for the day, giving West Germany the 3-0 lead. That would be a lead that they would hold on to for the rest of the match, winning the European Championship final 3-0 over the Soviet Union. Now we move up to 1978 at the US Open. Andy North, with a score of 1-over, holds on for a one-stroke victory over runners-up Dave Stockton and J.C. Snead to claim his first of 2 US Open titles and 2 majors in his career. 6 years later in 1984, we stick with the US Open. Fuzzy Zoeller, with a score of 4-under, defeats runner-up Greg Norman by 8 strokes in an 18-hole playoff to win his first US Open title. Now we move to Major League Baseball in 1986, and Don Sutton notched his 300th victory, becoming only the 19th pitcher to have 300 victories. In the game, Sutton, 9 innings pitched, 0 walks allowed, 3 strikeouts. Now we're right back to the US Open in 1989. Curtis Strange, with a score of 2-under, wins 3 strokes ahead of runner-up Scott Simpson for the first back-to-back US Open title since when Ben Hogan did it in 1950 and 1951. If you remember yesterday's episode, we know who would eventually end up doing it since then, but it's only been one person. Only Brooks Koepka has done it since. 1 year later at the 1990 US Open, Hale Irwin, with a score of 8-under, wins his 3rd US Open title, defeating Mike Donald in the 91st hole, the first in sudden death after tying the 18-hole playoff. Now we move up to 1994, and we have a world record for the 100-meter freestyle, when Alexander Popov would end up swimming it in 48.21 seconds. This would be a record that would be held for nearly 6 years when it was finally broken in September of 2000. 1 year later in 1995, we're right back to the US Open, and Corey Pavin, who would end up shooting par over the 4 rounds, won his only major championship, 2 strokes ahead of runner-up Greg Norman. Also in 1995 at the FIFA Women's World Cup, Norway was going up against Germany. Norway would end up getting the 2-0 victory when Hagar Riise scored in the 37th minute and Marianne Pedersen scored in the 40th minute to give Norway a 2-0 lead. They would end up keeping this lead throughout the rest of the match. They would end up defeating Germany 2-0, getting their first World Cup final victory. Now we move up 5 years to 2000 at the 100th edition of the US Open. Tiger Woods, with a score of 12-under, won his first US Open title by a major championship record-setting 15 strokes over runner-up Ernie Els and Miguel Jimenez. This would be the 3rd of 15 majors for Tiger and the first of 3 US Open victories. 1 year later, we move up to the 2001 US Open, and Retief Holsen, with a score of 4-under, wins the first of 2 US Open titles and the first of 2 major victories in an 18-hole playoff, 2 strokes ahead of runner-up Mark Brooks. 5 years later, we stick with the US Open in 2006, and Jeff Ogilvy, with a score of 5 over, would end up winning 1 stroke ahead of runners-up Jim Furyk, Colin Montgomery, and Phil Mickelson. This would be Ogilvy's only major victory in his career. 7 years later, we move to the NBA, and we have Game 6 of the Miami Heat going up against the San Antonio Spurs. The Miami Heat fans were already starting to walk out the door with less than 20 seconds remaining on the clock when the Spurs went up by 3. Then the magic happened. Chris Bosh would end up getting a rebound, kick it out to Ray Allen. Ray Allen would hit the 3-pointer at the end of the game to send it to overtime when the Heat would end up defeating the Spurs 103-100. In the game, Tim Duncan led the scoring for the San Antonio Spurs with 30 points, but LeBron James had a triple-double for the Heat, 32 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds. He did everything he could that game, and when it was up to the final shot in regulation to force it to overtime, Ray Allen came through in the clutch. 1 year later, in 2014, in the MLB, we almost have perfection. Clayton Kershaw ended up getting a no-hitter with 9 innings pitched, 0 walks allowed, 15 strikeouts. In the 7th inning, an errant throw by Hanley Ramirez would be the only man to reach base in the game, ruining the chance for a perfect game by Clayton Kershaw. However, he still got the no-hitter, the team still got the victory, he's still a part of baseball history, even if it's not a perfect game. We end off today's episode in 2017 where we have two events. First, we have the Cricket's Champions Trophy where Pakistan will defeat India. This would be the largest margin of victory in the Champions Trophy. This would also be Pakistan's first Champions Trophy. Then in 2017 at the US Open, Brooks Koepka with a score of 16 under wins his first major title, 4 strokes ahead of runners-up Brian Harman and Hideki Matsuyama. And as we all know, because of yesterday's episode, Koepka would go on to win the 2018 US Open as well. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. If I mispronounced any names, I do apologize. If you all have any other suggestions of what you would like me to do in future videos, let me know down in the comment section. For Nick Wire and the 10th inning, see y'all tomorrow.